How to fix VAN 9003 error. PC fails to boot after enabling UEFI due to unloaded secure boot keys. Welcome back to Teknobalta, your premier source for in-depth technical guides. Today, we're tackling a highly specific yet critical issue: the dreaded VAN 9003 error, which frequently appears after enabling UEFI mode, preventing your PC from booting due to unloaded secure boot keys. This scenario often leaves users in a frustrating boot loop or with an unbootable system, requiring precise configuration within the UEFI firmware. Understanding the interaction between UEFI, secure boot, and the essential platform keys is paramount to resolving this deep-seated system integrity problem and restoring your PC to full operational status. The VAN 9003 error, while often associated with gaming anti-cheat systems, fundamentally points to a system configuration mismatch between your operating system's boot requirements and the UEFI firmware settings. When you enable UEFI, especially on an older or recently reconfigured system, the secure boot mechanism expects specific cryptographic keys to validate the bootloader and operating system components. If these platform keys, PK, key exchange keys, KEK, or database, DB, entries are unloaded or missing, secure boot's integrity checks will fail, preventing the system from initializing Windows. Our comprehensive guide will walk you through a series of professional, deep-dive solutions, focusing on re-establishing the necessary secure boot key infrastructure within your motherboard's UEFI settings. We'll ensure your system can properly validate the boot chain, eliminate the VAN 9003 error, and allow your PC to boot successfully into Windows. Prepare for a detailed exploration of your BIOS/UEFI environment as we diagnose and rectify this complex boot failure. Deep dive solutions for VAN 9003 error and unloaded secure boot keys. Acknowledge the VAN 9003 error context. The VAN 9003 error often signals a fundamental failure in the system's ability to verify its boot integrity, particularly after enabling UEFI and secure boot. This error message is a critical indicator that the operating system's environment cannot be trusted by the firmware. It's crucial to address the underlying cause within the UEFI settings rather than attempting superficial fixes. Immediate action: power cycle and BIOS entry. If your PC fails to boot and presents the VAN 9003 error, perform a hard power cycle by holding the power button until it shuts down. Upon restart, continuously press the designated key, typically DEL, F2, F10, or F12 for ASUS motherboards, to enter your BIOS/UEFI setup utility immediately. This grants access to the critical firmware settings required for correction. Identifying the core problem: unloaded platform keys. Once in the UEFI/BIOS, navigate to the boot or security section, then specifically to secure boot. Here, observe the platform key PK state, which will likely indicate unloaded or a similar status, confirming the absence of the essential cryptographic key. This unloaded state is the root cause preventing your system from booting securely. Navigating the BIOS/UEFI interface. BIOS/UEFI interfaces can vary significantly between motherboard manufacturers, even within ASUS models. Take time to familiarize yourself with the menu structure, often categorized under Advanced Mode, for more granular control. Use your keyboard's arrow keys and Enter for navigation, and pay attention to on-screen prompts for saving or exiting. Locating the OS type setting. Within the Secure Boot or Boot section, search for an option labeled OS type or Operating System type. This setting dictates how the UEFI firmware interacts with the installed operating system, requiring specific configurations for Windows UEFI mode. Its correct configuration is vital for proper secure boot functionality. Configuring OS type to Windows UEFI mode. change the OS type setting to Windows UEFI mode. This explicitly informs the firmware that your system is running a Windows installation designed for UEFI boot, enabling the necessary compatibility and prerequisites for secure boot key management. Incorrectly setting this can lead to persistent boot issues. Accessing key management. After setting the OS type, locate and enter the Key Management or Secure Boot Key Management submenu, usually found directly beneath the OS type option. This specialized section provides tools to manage the cryptographic keys, fundamental to Secure Boot's operation. Its accessibility confirms your motherboard supports key manipulation. Initiating default Secure Boot key installation. Within the Key Management menu, find an option such as Install Default Secure Boot Keys, Restore Factory Keys, or Load Default PKs. Select this option to instruct the UEFI firmware to generate and load a fresh set of Microsoft Standard Secure Boot keys. This action essentially reestablishes the trust chain for Windows boot. Confirming key installation. A confirmation prompt will appear, typically asking, "Do you want to install default Secure Boot keys?" Or, "Are you sure?" Select Yes or OK to proceed with the installation. This step is irreversible for the current session and commits the new keys to your motherboard's firmware. Verifying platform key, PK state. After the installation completes, return to the main Secure Boot menu. Observe the platform key, PK state once more. It should now display Loaded or Installed, confirming that the cryptographic keys have been successfully provisioned. This is the primary indicator of a successful key installation. Saving BIOS changes and exiting. Press F10 or the equivalent key indicated on screen to save the changes you've made to the UEFI settings. A confirmation dialog will appear, asking you to confirm saving the configuration and exiting. Select Yes or OK to reboot your system with the new Secure Boot key configuration applied. Initial boot. After key installation, your system should now attempt to boot into Windows normally. If the keys were loaded correctly, the Secure Boot mechanism should validate the bootloader, and the VAN 9003 error should no longer appear. Be patient during the initial boot, as the system may perform additional checks. Troubleshooting if boot still fails post-key install. If the system still fails to boot after installing the keys, re-enter BIOS and double-check all Secure Boot settings, especially ensuring OS type is Windows UEFI mode and PK state is loaded. Also, verify that CSM compatibility support module is disabled as it conflicts with UEFI native boot. Temporary workaround. Disabling Secure Boot if keys still won't load. As a last resort to gain access to your operating system, you can temporarily disable Secure Boot in the BIOS/UEFI settings. This bypasses the key verification process, allowing your system to boot, though without the enhanced security provided by Secure Boot. Remember to save and exit. Re-enabling Secure Boot after system stability. Once your system is stable and booting correctly with Secure Boot temporarily disabled, you may wish to re-enable it for optimal security. Re-enter the BIOS, navigate to Secure Boot, set OS type to Windows UEFI mode. Ensure keys are loaded, and then enable Secure Boot. Updating BIOS/UEFI firmware. An outdated BIOS/UEFI firmware can sometimes lead to compatibility issues with newer operating systems or Secure Boot implementations. Check your motherboard manufacturer's website, e.g., ASUS support page, for the latest firmware version. Updating the BIOS can resolve underlying bugs or improve UEFI stability. Clearing CMOS/resetting BIOS defaults. If all else fails, consider clearing the CMOS, complementary metal oxide semiconductor, memory, or loading optimized defaults within the BIOS. This reverts all UEFI settings to factory conditions, which can sometimes resolve deeply embedded configuration conflicts. Consult your motherboard manual for the specific jumper or button location. Checking boot device priority. Ensure that your primary operating system drive is listed as the first boot option in the boot order or boot priority section of your UEFI settings. An incorrect boot order can lead to the system attempting to boot from an unbootable device, causing delays or errors even with correct secure boot settings. Verifying GPT partition style. For Windows to boot correctly in UEFI mode with secure boot, your system drive must be partitioned using the GUID partition table, GPT scheme, not master boot record, MBR. You can verify this in Windows Disk Management if you manage to boot, or by using a Windows installation media to access the command prompt. Windows Boot Manager Integrity Check. In rare cases, the Windows Boot Manager itself might be corrupted. If you can boot from a Windows installation USB, use the Repair Your Computer option to access Troubleshoot Advanced Options, Startup Repair. This can often fix bootloader issues automatically, successfully resolving the VAN 9003 error due to unloaded secure boot keys. Requires methodical troubleshooting and precise configuration within your UEFI firmware. By following these steps, you should be able to restore your system's boot integrity and get back to a fully functional, secure environment. Don't forget to follow Teknobalta for more in-depth technical guides and solutions.